The Sterling and Finch Acquisition, a chronicle of consequence briefcase. The late afternoon sun cast long, amber shadows across the sophisticated downtown of Vidian City. The bustling streets were alive with the fading workday, a symphony of car horns, rushed conversations, and the distant metallic scent of the subway. Through this urban flow walked Vance, a black woman in her early 30s. Her demeanor was calm, her movements measured, carrying the subtle weariness of one too often judged before being seen. Her destination was Sterling and Finch, a high-end boutique known for its curated elegance and, less publicly, for its habit of making those who didn't fit its typical affluent profile feel unwelcome. Vance wasn't seeking opulence. She simply intended to purchase a graduation gift for her niece. A delicate silk scarf she had admired in the window, a simple, elegant, symbolic gesture of affection. The moment she crossed the threshold, the shift in the air was palpable. A fair-skinned associate behind a glass counter offered a thin, forced smile, her eyes performing a swift, calculating scan. A tall security officer, Bartholomew, arms folded, observed with the focused intensity of someone expecting a transgression. Vance felt the familiar sting of that cold, accusatory gaze, the one that needed no words to communicate. You don't belong here. She pushed the tension aside and proceeded to the accessories. She carefully touched the scarf, a brief smile touching her lips as she pictured her niece's delight. It was then Bartholomew approached. "Ma'am," he said, his tone a carefully calibrated mask of politeness. "Do you require any assistance?" "I'm just browsing." "Thank you," Vance replied, her voice steady with the composure earned through countless invisible confrontations. The officer remained unmoving. The sales associate, feigning to organize a nearby shelf, watched them both intently. Vance moved toward the register to pay. A client walking past smirked at the associate. "I don't understand why they let just anyone in here. Do you?" she whispered, loud enough to be heard. The associate merely smiled, her silence a damning affirmation. Vance presented her card. The associate ran it through the reader with deliberate slowness, seemingly awaiting the failure. When the transaction was approved, she offered no thanks, only a tight-lipped expression as she handed over the bag. Vance took it and turned. A sharp, sudden, and jarring alarm shrieked through the store. Bartholomew intercepted her instantly. "Stop, madam," he yelled. The alarm was triggered. "I need to check your bag. What is the meaning of this?" Vance asked, startled. Before she could respond, another employee was already on the radio. Possible theft at the main exit. African-American female, curly hair, black bag. Vance's heart ceased. "I did not steal anything," she stated, her voice firm. But Bartholomew already had her arm in a tight grip. "Please cooperate," he insisted, though the force on her wrist spoke of coercion, not courtesy. A crowd began to gather. Phones were raised. Murmurs and suppressed laughter circulated. A woman whispered, "It's always the same." Vance tried to speak, to explain she had paid, but her words were powerless against a uniform and a pre-existing bias that had already determined her guilt. The scene escalated into a profound humiliation. Two uniformed Vidian City Police Department officers, patrolling nearby, entered the store, beckoned by Bartholomew. Before Vance could utter another word, her wrists were encircled by cold steel. "Ma'am, we'll need to take you to the back room to search your belongings," one officer stated. "This is a mistake," Vance pleaded, her eyes stinging with suppressed tears. "I have a receipt." No one listened. She was escorted through the gawking public. A child asked his mother, "Why are they arresting her, Mommy?" The mother's reply cut through the noise. Because she must have done something wrong, darling." Vance felt the words pierce her soul. In the small, windowless room, officers emptied Vance's bag onto a metal table. Makeup, keys, wallet, and a small black box. When a golden badge rolled out, silence crushed the air. It bore the seal of the Federal Department of Justice, and a name none of them expected. Special Agent Vance, Civil Rights Division. Bartholomew stepped back. The younger officer lowered his eyes, and the associate gasped. Vance finally spoke, calm and firm. "The only misunderstanding is believing my skin defines my intent." Bartholomew stammered about protocol, but she replied, "Protocol or prejudice?" In the corridor, those who had filmed the incident looked ashamed. The woman who had mocked her appearance turned away. The child who asked why she was arrested now seemed to understand more than the adults. Vance gathered her things with dignity, the mark of the handcuffs still on her skin. She demanded the manager. He entered confidently, but when he saw the badge, panic replaced arrogance. He blamed store policies, but Vance answered, "Your policies allow humiliation without evidence. Is that what you call protocol?" The guard avoided her eyes. The associate whispered, "I didn't know who you were." Vance replied, "You didn't need to know who I am to treat me with respect." She refused compensation, stating she wanted justice, not money. Outside, a bystander had live-streamed everything. Within an hour, /hashtag Agent Vance and /hashtag retail profiling were trending worldwide. A message soon arrived from the Department of Justice. Director Sterling wanted to see her. By morning, her name filled every headline. At DOJ headquarters, Sterling addressed the cameras. "What happened to Agent Vance is not a mistake. It is a pattern repeating daily for thousands." He turned to her. "The country is listening." Vance stepped forward and spoke clearly. She had entered the store to buy a gift and left in handcuffs for having the wrong skin color. She vowed it would be the last time she stayed silent. "I was not offended that I was mistaken for a thief. What offended me was that no one imagined I could be anything more. My worth was present even when my wrists were shackled." Sterling handed her a folder and announced she would lead the national unit against racial profiling and commercial discrimination. Applause followed. Vance raised her hand. "I do not seek revenge. I seek change. Respect should not depend on fear." Meanwhile, at Sterling and Finch, the manager, Bartholomew, and the associate met with lawyers. The company's stock dropped 18% overnight. 3 days later, a public apology was issued, but the final line shocked the world. The new CEO would be designated by their principal investor and majority partner, Vance. The woman they handcuffed was now the owner. She had also been an impact investment consultant, quietly preparing to acquire companies with discriminatory practices. Her power had been hidden, waiting for the right moment. In her first statement as CEO, she declared, "They called me a thief, and they were right. I have just stolen their privilege to discriminate." The internet went silent. The officers involved were investigated and dismissed. Bartholomew, the guard, and the associate were terminated. Justice arrived, not through anger, but consequence. News networks analyzed every frame of the video, asking how an entire store ignored injustice until a badge appeared. Commentators called it a mirror to society's silent bias. Schools used the footage in ethics classes. Protesters gathered outside the store demanding reform. Vance, however, stayed composed. She visited her grandmother, who reminded her strength is quiet until it needs to be loud. That evening, she drafted a nationwide strategy for commercial equity. The following week, she testified before Congress. Lawmakers, moved by her professionalism, pledged bipartisan support. Across the country, businesses began rewriting training protocols. Vance insisted justice was not a headline, but a discipline requiring vigilance. Bartholomew issued a public apology, admitting he had judged her by appearance rather than evidence. His remorse seemed real, but too late to save his career. The associate entered counseling to face her implicit bias. Their consequences were clear: public accountability, loss of status, and personal reckoning. Vance believed punishment was necessary not for vengeance, but to cultivate growth. The world learned her message. True authority is earned with dignity. Injustice, when applied with clarity, is the strongest form of transformation. The very people who tried to silence her were stripped of the power they abused.